kick off the webinar. I think we will get started. I will now pass you over to Claire Guy. Hi, Claire.
Hi, Nicole. Thanks very much. That's brilliant. Good morning, everyone, and you're very welcome to this webinar. The purpose of this webinar is to run through the 2023 SEAI National Energy Research Development and Demonstration Funding Programme call, which opened last week. This will consist of a number of presenters, which are listed below. These are my colleagues from both the SEAI RDD team and the Research Finance team. So in terms of the webinar format, this will consist today of a presentation with voiceovers from the colleagues I mentioned before. This slide shows the outline agenda of the day. So we will begin with an overview of the SEAI RDD programme, its description and objectives. We'll then run through who can avail of this funding programme. We'll talk about what projects are available in both the open and topic strands and what these both mean. We'll talk through the definition of project roles, the application process and how to do so, how evaluation process works. We'll finally speak on financial requirements for the application process, and then a few top tips for yourselves when applying, and we'll finish with a Q&A session at the end. So just important to note, you will see there is a little Q&A window at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. So you can send us questions at any time during the webinar, and we will aim to answer all of these at the end of the webinar. So just a little bit of housekeeping for WebEx today. This event is being recorded, and a recording will be distributed to attendees and available online after the event. You will note that when you joined the webinar today, you were muted and you had your cameras off. But in terms of asking questions throughout the session, be sure to click on that little Q&A bubble on the right-hand side at the bottom of your screen, as I mentioned, and we will aim to answer all the questions at the end of the webinar. Recording and slides will be distributed after the event, and if we do not get to any of the questions throughout the Q&A session, a frequently asked questions document will be put together and compiled, and all of these questions will be available online to look at the answers after the event. So just in terms of who we are at SEAI, I'm sure a lot of people attending the call today will be aware of who the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland are, but we are Ireland's national Sustainable Energy Authority, and we are at the heart of delivering Ireland's energy revolution. And just in terms of our research and innovation, this is core to our strategy to deliver this energy revolution. So as research is central to SEAI's strategy, we'll just run through a couple of the SEAI research and innovation supports available. So our mandate is to lead and coordinate energy research supports in Ireland. And today the focus of this webinar is obviously on one of our initiatives, the SEAI National Energy RDD funding programme. But we're also involved in strategic research partnerships. We coordinate energy research at both a national and international level. We host the National Energy Research and Policy Conference in September, so look out for that. There'll be further details for that coming up shortly. We are involved with the International Energy Agency Technology Collaboration Programs, and we're also the national contact point for the Horizon Europe Energy Cluster. So the SEAI National RDD funding programme invests in innovative energy RDD projects which contribute to Ireland's clean energy transition. So the programme has a number of key objectives and overarching goals, which are highlighted here in the purple boxes. So through this programme, we aim to accelerate development and deployment of competitive energy product processes and systems, also enabling barriers to market uptake to be overcome. We aim to grow our national capacity to access, develop and apply international class RDD. And we also provide energy policy guidance and inform policy. So here are a number of key policy documents that we would link into in this programme. So the important part of the call today is talking about the RDD call that we launched last week. So it was launched last Friday, the 31st of March. And important to note that the application deadline will fall on Monday, the 29th of May at 3 p.m. So just take note of that. The eligibility and evaluation stages of the programme will take place in the summer from June to August 2023, and we aim to make award notifications in Q4 2023. So all call details are uploaded on our website at the moment. So if you go to the link below there, you can also Google SEAI or RDD, and this information will pop up and be available to look at some more there. In terms of the funding program itself, it was revitalized in 2018. And over this time, it's supported approximately 200 innovative energy research projects. It's funded in approximately 55 million euro in research funding between the years 2018 to 2022, thus supporting high value research jobs, careers and opportunities, and also informing energy policy as previously mentioned. Just important to note the key dates here again. So the 31st of March is when we launched, and Monday the 29th of May, 3 p.m. is the application deadline. So make sure to note that down. And just to note that the funding programme, so the SEAI and the RDD funding programme, is funded by the Government of Ireland through our parent department, the Department of the Environment, Climate and Communications. And this year we will have co-funding partners in the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine, and the Department of Transport for several of our topics that my colleague Joanne will run through shortly. And just finally to mention before I pass on to Joanne, the National Energy Research Database. So this is a great resource for anybody looking to have a look at previous projects which we've funded or find out more about past or ongoing research projects at the moment. So these are supported by SEAI and other national research funders. So if you want to have a look at any potential collaborators or partner organizations, it's a great resource to do so. So we've added the link here. So I will now hand over to my colleague Joanne Fitzgerald, who will provide more details about the topics in this year's call.
Thank you, Claire, for that comprehensive overview. We're going to take a deeper dive now into this year's funding call. So over the following slides, we will talk about who can avail of the programme, what funding is available, who can comprise a project team, how the applications will be evaluated, and what financial information needs to accompany the application. So the RDD funding call 2023 is open to public and private sector organisations based in Ireland, and these include companies, third level educational bodies, public sector and semi-state bodies. Now, an organisation can be a single partner in an application, but we also really strongly encourage consortia and collaborations. So applicants must be based in the Republic of Ireland, and we would ask you to pay close attention to the eligibility criteria, funding rates, and the documents required for organisations in the budget policy. And my colleague Victoria will talk about that in a little more detail later on in the webinar. You can also browse the National Energy Research Database for previous successful applicants and get a sense of the type of projects that have been funded. So these are the project categories and funding available in this year's call. We have small scale projects which are up to 12 months and up to €200,000 available in funding. Medium scale is 12 to 36 months and up to €650,000 available. Large scale projects are 36 to 48 months and up to €1 million in funding. And then we have academic fellowships, which are 12 to 36 months in duration, and there's up to €300,000 available for these projects. The classification of project categories is based on the duration of the proposed project, so bear that in mind when filling in your application form. Maximum funding rates are inclusive of overheads, and these are 25% of eligible staff costs. In the topic strand, in the annex, you will see the category and maximum funding available for each topic. I'll just talk to you briefly now about the academic fellowship strand. This is an opportunity for postdoctoral researchers to lead their own research in a project submitted to the open strand, or also topic 12, which is detailed in the annex. It's an opportunity to accelerate research career, and the projects can be up to 3 years in duration with up to €300,000 available. The applications must be submitted by the individual intending to take up the proposed fellowship, and a mentor or supervisor should be identified as part of the project team and listed as a partner applicant on the application. This mentor or supervisor should be a core funded member of staff of a third level educational body or have a contract extending beyond the end date of the fellowship. Fellowship applications will only be accepted from third level educational bodies in the Republic of Ireland only. And also, please remember to include a letter of motivation with your application for the academic fellowships. It's only required for the fellowships, not for the other project categories. So in this year's call, we have the topic strand or the open strand. In the topic strand, applicants can submit proposals that address specific topics, which we have generated in consultation with internal stakeholders within SEAI and other government and public sector bodies. There's 22 topics in this year's call. Equally, applicants can also submit applications to the open strand, where they propose projects that align with SEAI's remit and directly address the aims and objectives of the SEAI RDD funding programme, which Claire outlined earlier. There's no ring-fenced money for the topic strand or the open strand. The proposals will compete with each other equally for funding. And in past years, generally, there's been a 50-50 split between the open and topic strands among successful projects. In advance of the deadline, we cannot give feedback to potential applicants about whether they should submit to the topic or which topic to submit to. It is up to you to decide and make your argument in your application. So if you are submitting a proposal to the open strand, please ensure that the proposal is strongly aligned with the programme overarching goals in the purple boxes there, and also make reference to the relevant policies, which you can see below there, including the Climate Action Plan, Impact 2030, and the Programme for Government. So this year, as I mentioned already, we have 22 topics in the call. 4 of these are co-funded by our partners in the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine and the Department of Transport. And we ask you to please refer to the topic descriptions in Annex 1 of the call document for further details. Proposals submitted to a topic are not necessarily expected to address every objective or output that are outlined in the topic descriptions in Annex 1. So there's quite a lot of information in the slide now, but really we have gathered the 22 topics under the broad headings in the purple boxes here. And this year, the topics include under the heat heading, we have thermal storage and geothermal energy economic evaluation. Under data and modelling heading, we have a topic on energy consumption field trials and national car fleet modelling. Under the communities heading, we have 2 topics this year. One is on targeted interventions to empower communities and active energy citizens, and another on models for collaboration between renewable energy communities and large energy developers. Under the electricity heading, we have 3 topics, including demonstration of smart inverters, demand flexibility, and optimizing and standardizing smart technologies within the home, including vehicle-to-home, heat pumps, and solar PV. Under the green hydrogen heading, we have electrolyzers for offshore deployment. And also in the offshore category, we have a topic about dynamic cable stress and failure mechanisms. Under the large industry decarbonisation heading, we have 3 topics, including one on high temperature heat pumps, electrified industrial heat storage, and barriers for low carbon heating in large industry. Under energy efficiency in buildings, we have a topic about supporting enhanced uptake of energy efficiency upgrades in rental, multi-owner and multi-use properties, which up to now have not been taking them up to the same level as owner-occupied properties. And then under the behaviour heading, we have a topic about energy price rises and their impact on energy poverty, and the performance gap in dwellings and non-domestic buildings. Then we have 4 topics, as mentioned already, that are co-funded with our partners. We have engagement levels of the farming sector in renewable energy projects, and that is co-funded with the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine, who have also co-funded or agreed to co-fund our 2 bioenergy topics. One is about the use of bioresources in different sectors and the preferential route for that bioresources in terms of sustainability impacts. And we have another topic on pyrogenic carbon capture and storage. Then finally, co-funded with the Department of Transport, we have a topic under the heading of Sustainable Mobility about mobility as a service. So again, I would really like to highlight that proposals submitted to each topic are not necessarily expected to address every objective outlined in the topic description in the annex of the call document. So now I will hand you back over to Claire.
Great, thanks very much, Joanne. So in the next few slides, I will talk about the different project roles within a project team. As Joanne previously discussed the topics, once you've identified your project area of interest, it is important to start building your team as soon as possible. So the SEAI or D&D call welcomes applications including 1 or several organizations, and there are 3 main roles within a project team. These are the lead applicant, partner applicants, and collaborators, and we will go through each of these in the next few slides. So in terms of the lead applicant, this is the budget holder and will hold responsibility and accountability for the management of the research project. That means the lead will be responsible for the technical direction, reporting of project progress and monitoring, and also the dissemination and other management duties in line with SEAI policies. They will also be the primary contact point for SEAI. Then there's the partner applicants. They may form part of the proposed funded project team and are responsible for supporting the lead applicant. They are a funded partner and they will be named within the grant agreement, as will the lead applicant. Then when we speak about collaborators, these are organizations who are committed to providing valuable intellectual, technical and financial contribution to the proposed research project. However, they are not funded by SEAI. That's important to note. So when we're talking about our various different project roles, it's important to mention collaboration and co-production, which will be the focus of the next few slides. So we encourage collaboration across disciplines, stakeholders, organizations, communities and end users, and I'll touch on a few of these aspects in the next few slides. So one of the aspects of the call to encourage engage research is the identification of proposed project end users in the application form. So a research end user is defined as an individual, community or organization that will directly use or benefit from the outputs of the proposed research project. So we ask applicants to provide details of these end users that will be targeted in the proposed research project in various sections within the application form. So in particular, section 1, which you see a screenshot here, the details of end users targeted, and section 3.6. In these sections, you should demonstrate how you work and plan to work with end users and other stakeholders to ensure increased impact of your proposed research project. In terms of diverse participation, we're aware and acknowledge the fact that transformative research to address Ireland's clean energy transition will require diverse participation across a number of different groups. With this in mind, and in this call in particular, all applicants are asked to consider gender aspects of their proposed research, including any particular potential gender dimensions of the proposed research activity, as well as to report on gender balance. So we ask applicants to provide further details in the various sections that I've outlined here of the application form. So you'll find that all in the application form once you download it from the webpage. And finally, just to touch on the data management strategy. So applicants are asked to consider in advance of putting together the proposal the types of data that they will need, whether this is already available and open access, or whether they'll need other routes to get this data. So Part of the application process includes the data management plan and open access strategy. And where possible, we encourage the use of existing available data. And project teams are encouraged to work with open access tools, ultimately to make project outputs available to interested stakeholders, and also to facilitate further research projects and to avoid duplication of research. So I've outlined the sections in the application form here that's important to note for the data management strategy. So I've given you an overview of the project team roles and touched on a few aspects in relation to the application form. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Louise O'Connor, who will provide more details on the evaluation criteria and how to submit your application form.
Thank you very much, Claire. So now I'm going to take you through submitting your application and the evaluation process. So as mentioned, all the call documents are available on our web page as linked on the screen there, and they consist of the key supporting program documents, the call document and the budget policy, and also the application form and the budget templates. And these are the templates that you need to fill in. So when submitting your application, you will submit these templates above, your letters of support and any other supporting financial documentation and declarations. So it's important to familiarise yourself with the call document and the budget policy, and to make reference to these and when completing your templates. Just a reminder that there are a number of checklists within the application to ensure that your application is fully complete. So we'd recommend you complete these as you go through the application form. So within section 6, there's a checklist on letters of support, which I'll go through in more detail in the upcoming slide. In Annex 2, there's a checklist for financial declarations and documentation. And Annex 3, as detailed on the screen here, is an overall checklist for all your supporting documentation. So yeah, please complete these checklists before you submit, because incomplete applications will not proceed to a technical evaluation. So to ensure that you can be considered, do complete the checklists and ensure that you have all your documentation in order. So just to go into the letters of support in more detail, there is a checklist on section 6 of the application form to allow you to check which letters of support are required. So the lead applicant is required to supply a letter of support, and this is the person leading the project and submitting the application. The letter of support should confirm they are not in receipt of any grant aid from other sources and that they have a contract covering the duration of the project. The lead applicant organisation is an authorised staff member. It could be the CEO or director of a company, or in terms of a third level educational body, could be the vice president or director for research or equivalent. So this should confirm endorsement of the project and commitment to hosting or facilitating the project. Again, partner applicant organisations, if there are any partner applicants listed within your application, a letter of support will also need to be provided from the partner applicant organisation. Again, this should be from an authorised staff member, a company CEO, or a vice president for research or equivalent. This should confirm their role in the project and the level of support being provided. Again, any collaborators listed within the application will also be required to supply a letter of support, confirming their role in the project and the kind of support that they're supplying, whether it's access to data, technology, or any other in-kind support. There is a separate checklist for fellowship applications. So the lead applicant in this case would be the fellow submitting the application, as Joanne detailed earlier. The lead applicant organisation, similar to the above, and a partner applicant in this instance will be the academic mentor or supervisor. In addition, fellowship applications are required to submit a letter of motivation. This should demonstrate their interest and suitability and how it would enhance their career development. So just to note that there are further guidance within the call document in Annex 2 on how to complete these sections of the application form. So once you have checked all your checklist and you're confident that you have all the supporting documentation, it's then time to submit to SEAI. So all applications should be submitted via the Project Evaluation Platform, also known as PEP. And again, just to note, only fully complete applications received prior to the 3 p.m. deadline will be considered for evaluation. You may begin preparing your application submission offline. However, please note that all documents must be submitted through the PEP platform before the submission deadline. We'd recommend that applicants become familiar with the portal. New users will be required to register, and there is an element of application data input. So please don't leave it to the last minute and become familiar with the platform and register early. There is a PEP guidance document available also if you run into any issues. So I'll now take you through the evaluation process. So as mentioned earlier, proposals submitted to the open and the topic strand compete with each other for funding, and as such they each follow the same evaluation process. Stage 1 is the eligibility assessment, and here the proposal will be assessed to ensure they are compliant with the programme requirements and objectives as described earlier. We would again encourage applicants to consult the checklist provided to ensure that their applications are complete, as incomplete applications will not proceed to stage 2. Stage 2 is the technical evaluation, so all proposals that pass stage 1 will then continue to stage 2, where they will be evaluated under the following evaluation criteria: excellence and innovation, relevance and impact, quality and efficiency of implementation, including value for money, and I will go through these now in more detail. So the first section or criteria to consider is excellence and innovation. Here evaluators will assess the level of ambition and innovation, as well as the quality, validity and reliability of the research proposed. This criteria also considers the project team, their familiarity with the research area, and their track record in RD&D activities. So while evaluators will review the application as a whole, section 2 of the application form is really focused on excellence and innovation. And this can be seen here on the screenshot on the right. And again, further guidance is available in Annex 2 of the call document on how to complete this section of the application form. So section 2 is, or the criterion 2 is relevance and impact. Here evaluators will assess the relevance of the proposal to the Irish energy sector and how the proposal builds on national capacity. Your expected outputs and inputs are also assessed under this criterion, and reference to the value added of transdisciplinary collaboration, active engagement and involvement of key stakeholders and end users as mentioned before. The strength of the communication and dissemination of these outputs will also be considered, including the relevance to enterprise, policymakers, the scientific community and the end user. Under the relevance to Irish energy sector, the applicant is encouraged to identify how your proposal addresses and supports national and international policy ambitions, and make reference to relevant policy documents that were mentioned earlier and are displayed here on the screen. Criterion 2, relevance and impact, is addressed within section 3 of the application form, and again Annex 2 of the call document provides instructions on how to complete the application form template. So do have that at hand when you're completing your application form. It will give you further guidance on how to complete these sections of the application form. So the final criterion is quality and efficiency of implementation. And this is really focused on section 4 and 5 of the application form, as well as the budget template. Now, this criterion is divided into 2 sections. The first section is project delivery and management, which is where 20% of the criterion 3 marks. This section looks at work plan. It'll be evaluated on its clarity, coherence and credibility. Is it logical and is it clear? And is it realistic in what it wants to achieve and how it wants to achieve it? And are the timelines realistic? It'll also look at the project management. Is there a strong structure in place, and have risks been identified, and are there mitigation measures proposed? The second section of this criteria looks at budget and value for money. Budget will be discussed in more detail by my colleague Vicky in the upcoming slides. But in short, is the requested budget suitable and is it appropriate for the project and the size of the proposal? And have the costs been sufficiently justified? Are they necessary for the successful completion of the project? Applicants are advised to take care in completing the budget section and provide a narrative for the cost requested. So overall, is it economic, efficient, effective? So really it's important to justify the need for the costs and do provide a good narrative on this to allow the evaluator to see that the budget is appropriate. And just to note, for applicants to be considered eligible for funding, proposals must achieve a minimum average score of 60% in each evaluation criteria. So I'll now pass over to my colleague Vicky, who will go through some of the financial elements in more detail.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the finance section of the presentation. I'm going to discuss all things money and probably governance and what constitute a complete application in the next few slides. This is by no means a comprehensive outline, it's a brief overview. Sorry, I'm going to click onto the next slide. It's an overview of what I'm going to talk about. Full details are contained in the SEAI budget policy, which is available online at the moment. I know there's lots of documentation there. I would strongly advise that you read through this because it will help you complete your application. The first point that I would like to go over is specifically for companies. The funding available through the RDD programme is paid out on a reimbursement retrospective basis. So it's one of the key things that companies should really consider before they put an application form together. Consider your cash flow and how you will fund the project through its life financially. There's a few things that we would look at from the financial side of the house. I am one of 5 team members that review the budget. And what we're really looking for is that your budget is really fit for purpose. So it's realistic and achievable. You've considered value for money and all the costs are project related. So you need to justify the costs clearly throughout the application form and within the budget template. What constitutes a complete application? So this is a fundamental change and you'll see this message. Louise has already gone through it a couple of times. I'm probably going to say it a couple of times as well. If your application is not complete, it will not be assessed and it will not be granted funding. So please make sure you read through the call document and the budget policy. There's checklists throughout, actually in the budget template and within the call document that you can go through to make sure that you've provided all the information required. So what is that? That's your application form and your completed budget template. All the proper support and declarations that are required. So this is different depending on what type of organisation you are and how much money that you're requesting. One of the tips for the declarations that I would highlight is for all of those organisations that need to submit a declaration of financial resources. That's mainly companies. The total project cost is the amount that goes on this declaration, not the potential 20% that you're going to contribute to the project. We need to see that you have the financial resources to cover the whole project, not the element that you're going to provide yourselves. To be able to claim VAT and be VAT inclusive, you need to provide a letter from revenue. So this isn't a tax clearance cert, this is a specific letter from revenue supplied to say that your organisation and the project specifically is not eligible to reclaim VAT. So if you're VAT registered, you can't reclaim VAT on this specific project. That's what we're looking for VAT eligibility. All companies must supply accounts or financial statements. We give a bit more detail on that if you're a new company within the call document and within the budget policy. Letter of support and data management plans. So all of these elements constitute a full application. If it's not complete, it won't go through. So really make sure that you're understanding what information you need to provide. And to be honest, if you're in doubt of something that you need to provide it anyway. It's better to send the information in and maybe we deem that we don't need it rather than not send it in at all and your application doesn't go through to the next stage. So there's different funding rates available. How the funding rates will be granted is based on the GBA rules through EU state aid. So GBA is the General Block Exemption Regulations. And what we look at is the type of research that you're going to do, the size of your organisation, and whether you're eligible for a collaboration or dissemination intensifier. So the maximum funding rate for a company would be 80%. It's capped off, and that's the rules we have to go by. On the size of your company, if you are looking for a small or medium, micro-sized company, small or medium intensifier, we look at your annual accounts for that. But what you need to also consider is if you are daughter, sister, child company and you have a parent company, we look at the organisation as a whole. So you must provide parent accounts so that we can assess your eligibility for small or medium funding intensifier. The only category that is eligible for 100% funding is under the non-economic public good category. Now, we have two declarations for non-economic public good. One is for third level educational bodies, and the second one is for semi-state and public sector organisations. Make sure you fill in the right declaration for the type of organisation that you are. If you're applying under semi-state public sector organisations for non-economic public good, there's very specific criteria that you need to meet, and that's contained within the declaration. So do make sure that you meet that criteria before you apply for that funding level. This is just a bit of a snapshot of how the funding works. So you can get this and download this from any sort of EU website. So these are the sort of the rules that we're held to, if you like. So you can see if you're a company applying for industrial research, you get the SME intensifier and you are doing dissemination or collaboration, your support would be capped at a maximum of 80%. And then obviously it'll change if you're asking for anything, if you don't get the intensifiers for collaboration or dissemination. So it varies upon what your research category is and the type of organisation you are. At this stage, I'd also like to flag if you are looking for a dissemination intensifier specifically for companies, this would be withheld until the end of the project. So if you're granted the intensifier, that would be paid out into the last reporting period once you've proved or provided the evidence that dissemination has happened. So if you're a maximum support of 80% for a company, you'd be paid out at 70% until you've evidenced that dissemination has happened, and then you would get a top up of your grant at the end for the whole project period. So you get a higher payment at the end, if you like. You need to make sure you have very clear justification for your research categories and also your effective collaboration dissemination categories within the application form. The only 100% category there, as I said, is a public good category. Make sure you fill in the right declarations for that, and you've also justified that within your application form. So these are the budget categories that you can request money for. So staff costs, the eligible maximum daily rate for staff costs is €400 a day. Now, this isn't a case of you can just ask for €400 a day. There's a calculation that works in behind these staff costs that's outlined in the budget policy, and it's to do with your gross salary, employer's PRSI if that's eligible, and the days, the workable days. We set at 230 days for full-time staff members. So there's a calculation that works in there to work out the maximum daily rate. Staff costs has to be project related staff. If you are a core or state funded member of staff, therefore you're not reliant on funding, they're not all eligible costs because you're already seeking salary through the state. Postgraduate fees are set at $6,000 per person per year. That's a standard straight calculation and the maximum that we allow. Overheads is also straight calculation, 25% of the staff costs. Equipment and materials is probably the two most complicated categories for most people. Equipment will be depreciated depending on the type of equipment and the usage period that the equipment is going to be used across the project. So we have set depreciation terms. It's 36 months for IT equipment and 60 months for all other equipment. So the rule here is if that piece of equipment is on your asset register, so if your company and your accountant is depreciating that and you hold it on an asset register, and even with the third level education and public sector organisations. If you have an asset register and that piece of equipment is going on that, it will be depreciated. If it's not, many companies and organisations in general have a threshold, so anything that is, say, purchased under €2,000 may not go on your asset register, therefore you could put that item under materials. However, if you do that, you will need to provide your asset register policy or your depreciation policy at the time of application. Materials, as it says here, is sort of a catch-all category. So materials are considered any dissemination costs. If you're doing testing and you're renting or hiring out a ship, that type of thing. Also anything that is going to be consumed by the project. So anything consumed or any small items of what you may say is equipment, but it's necessary for the project. It's going to be obsolete or used by the end of the project. There's no residual value on it. So it's worthless at the end of the project. It can go into materials. Travel costs. Travel, there's two sorts of elements to travel. You've got the strictly project related travel here. So if you have a community project, for talk's sake, and you're visiting lots of communities, the length and breadth of Ireland, that's project related travel. It's not capped. So anything like that. So travel to test sites or anything that's very, very linked to the project delivery is uncapped. The capped element comes in when you're attending conferences. So this is capped at €1,500 per person per year. The last category is, again, can be a little bit confusing. External consultants. External consultants must complement the project. The maximum rate that you can apply for here is the €600 plus VAT, as it's written down there. We don't expect consultancy costs to be over 20% of the total project costs per partner. What we do expect is external consultancy costs or external consultants are not responsible for work packages. They're not leading any element of the project. They add value and benefit and expertise. They aren't named in the application form. They aren't responsible for particular elements of the project delivery, and they should be always openly and transparently procured. All of the information here is within the budget policy, as I said, so please do have a good read over it. If there's any questions, there is an email address that you can send us queries to, because we can't account for every sort of situation, but we'll try to. So please consult all the documentation that's online. So as an overview of the top tips that we have for the call is, you've only got 8 weeks left to apply. Review all the documents, make sure that you're filling the budget template and the application form in completely. Don't leave anything blank. Make sure you're working on your project team now. Don't leave it too late. You can submit the application earlier if you want. You don't have to wait to the very deadline date. Probably a top tip would be to do that, so you know nothing's going to go wrong and it's been submitted and it's okay. We won't review that until after the deadline date. This is an extremely competitive call. Therefore, make sure, I'm going to say it again, make sure the application is complete. You've sent all of the declarations in, you've sent your annual accounts or your financial statements in, you've got your letters of support, your data management plan, the application form is fully completed and everything has been justified to give you the best chance of getting through to the next stage. The bottom item there, we can't review draft proposals. Because it's a competitive call, we can't give input into an application until after it's been submitted and pending it's been considered eligible and complete. So on that, I'm going to now pass over to the research, the RDD Programme Manager, Lucy Corcoran, who is going to lead off on the question and answer session.
Sorry everyone, Lucy Corcoran, I'm Programme Manager for our Research Development Demonstration Funding Programme, and I'll invite all the presenters to switch on your cameras now, and thank you all for joining us. If you have any further queries, as mentioned, you can refer to the RD&D Funding Programme website linked here, where all the documentation is available. A recording of this webinar will be made available there as well and will be emailed to all attendees. And a final reminder on the deadline. So Monday, the 29th of May at 3 p.m. is the application deadline. So really important to gather all your application information now in advance of the deadline to submit through PEP. And full details again at the website. And any questions at all, please do send on via email and we'll get back to you and add these to the FAQ document as well. So thank you very much everyone for joining us and best wishes with your applications.